World Cup qualifying is back, and on this edition of Team Melli Talk, we'll be going over Iran's roster for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers, and of course, we'll be previewing the huge clash with Syria that'll take place on September 2nd. It's time for the final round of World Cup qualifying, but it's also time for Team Melli Talk. Plenty of preparation has been taking place. Our Iranian footballers have been extremely busy, and of course, it's time to get right to it. Which players have been called up? Let's start right away and get right to it. First with the goalkeepers, Ali Reza Behronvand, Amir Abidzadeh, and Payam Niazmand. No surprises at all, of course, when talking about the goalkeepers. All three goalkeepers currently playing in Europe. Gotta love the excitement. Now on to the center backs. Shoja Khalilzadeh, Hossein Kenani, Siavash Yazdani, and Arif Agassi. Next, for the wingbacks, will we see any surprises on this list? Let's have a look. Sadegh Moharrami, Milad Mohammadi, who's currently unattached, Jafar Salmani, Saleh Hardani, and Omid Nurafkan. Now it's time to take a look at our midfielders and, of course, attacking midfielders slash wingers. Let's have a look. Saeed Ezatullahi, Ahmad Nurullahi, Vahid Amiri, Milad Sarlak, Mohammad Karimi, and Zobair Niknafs. Ali Reza Jahanbash, Saman Godus, Ali Golizadeh, Mehdi Torabi, and Yasin Salmani. A lot of familiar names so far on this list, but we cannot forget about some of the first-time call-ups. Let's go now to the forwards. Sardar Azmoun, Mehdi Taremi, Karim Ansari Fard, and Mehdi Gaidi. Okay, I know what you're all thinking. This list is pretty big, right? Well, of course it is. 27 players to be exact that have been called up by head coach Dragan Skocic. So for the time being, these 27 players are obviously very happy. But let's not forget that we are always used to seeing a 23-man roster when it comes to World Cup qualifying matches. So that means there's going to be 4 players that won't be very thrilled when Dragan Skocic has to make his difficult decisions. Now, when it comes to players being called up for qualifiers, there's always going to be a lot of football fans that aren't thrilled with what they see. And that's why I've decided to come up with a list of players that I consider to be surprise call-ups. Have a look. Zobair Niknafs of Esteghlal, Siavash Yazdani of Esteghlal, and Omid Nurafkan of Sepahan. Zobair Niknafs is in his late 20s. I know he's a solid player, but there are other players that could have been called up instead of him. And as for Siavash Yazdani, well, if you watched my previous edition of Team Melli Talk, he actually wasn't even on my list of possible call-ups at the center back position. And as for Omid Nurafkan, I know he's done good things before for Sepahan. He's kind of like a utility player. He can play as a left back or as a defensive midfielder. But whenever I've seen him play, he just always comes off to me as a ball watcher. So I'm not a big fan of him, and those are my surprise call-ups. We all know how this thing works. You can't talk about surprise call-ups without talking about who got snubbed. And that's why this edition is exactly that. Who got snubbed? Let's take a look. Omid Ebrahimi of Al-Wakra and Alayar Sayadmanesh of Zorya Luhansk. Like I said before, my previous edition of Team Melli Talk, I really believe Omid Ebrahimi deserves to be called up for Iran. Midfield is such a crucial position for Team Melli, and I'm not really sure what Dragan Skocic is thinking, because when we take a look at this list of midfielders, there are plenty of players here that Omid Ebrahimi is better than, and he also brings something that's very important to this team, and I'm pretty sure it's exactly what Dragan Skocic wants, and that is experience. So why exclude Omid Ebrahimi? Well, that's a head scratcher for me, and that's why I'm saying he obviously got snubbed. And as for my other player, Alayar Sayadmanesh has been doing great things with Zorya Luhansk in the top flight of football in Ukraine. But to be honest, I think Alayar Sayadmanesh is just a victim of Iran having so much depth at the striker position. I mean, from my point of view, would I select him over Karim Ansari Fard? Yes, I would. But like I also said, I really believe Dragan Skocic is going for a lot of experience in these upcoming World Cup qualifying matches. Now it is time to examine Iran's opponent, Syria. Remember, that qualifier is coming up on Thursday, September 2nd at the Azadi Stadium in Tehran. So let's have a look at these three players to watch from the Syrian national team. Two of them currently plying their trade in Greece, Abdulrahman Weiss, the right back currently playing for Crete, and Ais Osman, midfielder from Ionikos. And let's not forget about Mahmoud Al-Mawas, attacking midfielder of Botoșani in Romania. Now the truth is, Iran is dodging a bullet a bit, with star striker Omar Al-Soma not being available for Syria. But the player here that I'm focusing on the most has got to be Abdulrahman Weiss, the right back. He's actually born in Greece, but is of Syrian ethnicity. 0 caps so far for Syria, but I think he will be a secret weapon for head coach Nizar Mahrous when Syria takes on Iran. Now for predictions, I'm all about predicting the starting lineup that Iran will have against Syria, and of course want to go over the keys to getting the victory over Syria. But first, let's take a look at my projected starting lineup. I expect to see Alireza Bayramvan starting in goal. As for the 4 defenders, Milad Mohammadi, Shoja Khalilzadeh, Hossein Kanani, and Sadek Moharami. As for the midfielders, Ahmad Nurulahi, Saman Godus, and Saeed Ezatolahi. And up top, Alireza Jahanbash, Mehdi Etarmi, and Ali Golizadeh. Now, when looking at my projected starting lineup, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some Iranian football fans that aren't big fans of me choosing Milad Mohammadi to start at the left back position. Reason being, he's currently unattached and not signed with the club. And that brings in that whole thought of why should he be playing for the national team if he's not even playing much club football lately. But the fact is, this is World Cup qualifying and the left back position is extremely crucial for Team Melli. I am okay with seeing Milad Mohammadi starting at the left back position. Now, what about the keys to victory? Well, I've narrowed it down to 2 of them. Let's have a look. Attack early and close space in midfield. Now, my reasoning for this is that I like to see Iran attack early. I want to see Iran really rattle Syria and get them shaking, that's for sure. And with Iran establishing control, it'll be very difficult for Syria to form any kind of an attack. And also, when it comes to closing space in the midfield, this has to do with Iran's center backs that I'm not always super confident in, meaning Shoja Khalilzadeh and Hossein Kanani. And put it this way, the midfield is going to be working very hard in order to decrease scoring opportunities from the Syrian national team. And going back to what I said earlier, attacking early, if Iran is able to score an early goal, this will completely open up the game and it will force Syria to have to attack, and that of course will definitely leave them exposed and lead to more scoring opportunities for Iran. And now for my final thoughts. Now the fact is, this will be a tough game for Iran. I know there's a lot of Iranian football fans that think this will be really easy, because Iran defeated Syria in a friendly match not too long ago by a score of 3-0. But we have to remember that friendly matches have nothing to do with a World Cup qualifier, especially in the final round. So the way I see it, those results from those friendly matches mean nothing. They're not even worth talking about. And yes, it is disappointing that Sardar Azmoun will not be available when Iran plays Syria, but we need to understand the truth and realize a few things. There are plenty of weapons from Team Melli, the national team of Iran. We know Iran's the better team. They should win, and they will win. Now, what about you? Who do you think will have to step up? Who do you think is going to be the hero when Iran plays Syria? Leave a comment down below. Always looking forward to getting your input. And that's it, everybody, for this edition of Team Melli Talk. Really do appreciate the support. Make sure you get to our website, www.teammelitalk.com. Remember, this is your best source for the latest news on Team Melli, the national team of Iran. Make sure you find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You know the handle, @Team Melli Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification button. See you on the next edition of Team Melli Talk.